it's important to note that behavioral change on a large scale takes time. And I think providing the accurate information is the first step to that. And we know that as we continue to enhance the features and build awareness by the help of collaboration in the industry, we will witness a significant shift towards more environmental conscious travel choices.
Welcome to Sustainability in the Air, the world's first podcast dedicated to sustainable aviation. I'm your host, Shashank Nigam, the CEO of Simplifying. Every Thursday, I have important conversations with top aviation executives, technology entrepreneurs, and policymakers helping aviation take climate action. Conversations that help separate the signal from the noise. Whether you are a frequent flyer or an airline executive, if you care about sustainability or simply love traveling, welcome aboard. My guest today is Sebnem Erzan. She is the head of travel sustainability and transport global partnerships at Google. Based in Zurich, Switzerland, Sebnem and her team is responsible for the CO2 footprint of a flight that you see when you're searching flights on Google Flights. She's also responsible for the travel impact model, TIM, and works with airlines, non-airlines, and NGOs like the ICCT to make sure that carbon data and other CO2, non-CO2 data is available not just to Google, but through Google to any airline that wants to use it. I dive deep with Sebnem on what is the vision for sustainability at Google and how Google is allowing airlines to reduce their carbon footprints. Welcome to the show, Sebnem. Your career path at Google has seen you in a variety of roles, from head of business development in EMEA to your current role as a head of travel sustainability. How do you feel equipped to lead sustainability initiatives? And how has your experience helped you get to where you are and to help address environmental challenges in travel?
Thank you very much. First of all, thanks a lot for having me. It's a pleasure to be here. Yes, I think my diverse career path within Google, but also before Google, has been instrumental in shaping my approach to sustainability in the travel industry. So first of all, I have a bachelor's degree from economics, and and also a master's degree in economics, and I started my career in risk management. So I think my analytical roots and my background in risk management instilled a data-driven approach, and translating the environmental impact of travel into clear metrics, I think allows me to facilitate our efforts and also collaboration and buy-in from the industry stakeholders. So then in Google, first I worked with big partners in finance and travel. Then I built the channel sales business for small and medium businesses in Turkey, Middle East, and Africa. And then I led the business development efforts in EMEA. So I think all of them gave me a deep understanding of the regional needs and differences across the markets, as well as the travel industry's complexities, the players, dynamics, and the pressures stakeholders face. So this knowledge is really invaluable when developing travel sustainability initiatives globally in Google, but also for the collaboration with the different industry stakeholders. So as you can see, my career didn't follow a linear path towards sustainability, but I think it instilled the skills and the mindset that allow me to lead effectively within this complex and critical space. So we need urgent progress here, and I think my background gives me the confidence to drive change. I also believe this is not a problem that we can tackle alone. It requires a lot of cooperation and collaboration across the industry. And my career has shown me how power lies in collaborations. And in my current role, we are collaborating with a diverse set of stakeholders, NGOs, airlines, coalitions, policymakers, and many more. And we are all trying to empower travelers with data. So features like carbon emissions on flights stem from our belief that hard data empowers better decisions for everyone. I also approach challenges as opportunities. So we have a huge opportunity here to help our users to make more sustainable travel choices. And this mindset is born from I think our years seeing how focusing on user needs led to Google's most successful products. So I think my diverse background has enabled me to approach this challenge holistically and by collaborating across industry and focusing on solutions that are impactful and have the potential to scale.
Right. So we're going to dive into all of these things around your collaboration efforts across the industry. But first, if we zoom out a little, what is the vision for sustainable travel at Google, and why is this so important?
It's very important to really empower our users with products and services that we have. So we are aiming to provide useful information for our users. Our starting point is always like, how can we help our users, in each of our products, right? And travel is one of them. So every day, many, users are coming to our platform to plan a trip. And they're looking for certain things. And we see a increasing demand also about their environmental impact when traveling. So that's the whole idea. And it all started with that. And after that, in some areas, we see a gap where we see as an opportunity that we can also provide those tools that we have to the whole industry and enable the other industry stakeholders with those tools and technology that we have. But it all starts with the user needs.
Right. Okay. So, and we will get to user as well, because a lot of what Google is doing is front end. So based on the user, which is the traveler, there's a noticeable consumer demand for more sustainable travel options in the recent year, especially post-pandemic. So how does Google stay attuned to these evolving preferences, and how do you incorporate user feedback and demands into developing sustainability features?
Yeah. We also recognize the critical influence of consumer demand when traveling, and we are committed to empower travelers to make more sustainable choices, so to say. And we continuously develop tools and features to genuinely reflect that growing demand. So we are looking at multiple channels of insight. First of all, of course, we are looking at the search data. So Google Search provides invaluable insights into what consumers are actively looking for. So we track trends in searches related to sustainable travel, green flights, eco-friendly accommodations, carbon footprints, and more. And this data really helps us understand the concerns and the priorities of the travelers on a global scale. And then we gather feedback from our users, via different channels, either through our partners, or we run our user studies or surveys. And of course, we have our platform that we run experiments and have the opportunity to see where users either explicitly express a desire for more sustainable travel options, or we measure the engagement with those experiments. And then we also look at industry researches, and we collaborate with industry bodies like NGOs, research organizations who specialize in this area. And all of those helps us to shape our products and features. So, for example, the rising interest in carbon emissions transparency led to the inclusion of carbon footprint information on Google Flights. But of course, as you can imagine, this is an ongoing process, and we track usage patterns and then refine our tools to ensure that they're helpful. And also, it's not just about the demand, the current demand, but also how can we help increase the awareness of the consumers. So it's also the education. So we use our platform to educate consumers on the sustainable choices too.
This is very interesting. Just to clarify, currently I am aware that on Google Flights, the search platform, I can see CO2 data for my flight, CO2 emissions data. Are there any other consumer-facing platform where customers are becoming aware through Google services?
Yeah. So on the travel side, we have flights. We are showing carbon emissions per passenger per flight. And then we have on the hotel side, we are showing eco-friendly or eco-certified hotels. So you can see a green leaf when you're searching for a hotel, and we say this is eco-certified. We also list the sustainability attributes for accommodations. For example, if they are having some sustainability efforts on the water or waste management or or other things that they're doing. And also, last year we have launched trains and buses unit in addition to flights, in some markets, and we are, doing it globally this year. We are expanding to the other markets. So you can also see, on the trains that there's a green leaf, and we are saying that train is also climate friendly. And also we are using average carbon emissions from IEA, International Energy Agency, to also surface that information to the users. And in other products, we have other things. For example, we are also showing information nest. In Google Maps, we are showing eco-friendly routing.
Okay, this is very interesting. So it's across all modes of transport, just not on Google Flights.
Yes.
Though if we focus on Google Flights, I remember my heart was broken about 1.5 years ago when you took a win on CO2 emissions. And I think overnight, the emissions being shown for my flight were half, or I think less than half. Why was that decision taken then? And what are you trying to do to include non-CO2e emissions?
Yeah, that's a great question. Thank you. So first of all, we believe in the impact of other warming effects on the CO2. So in Google Flights, we are providing the information per passenger per flight. So at that point, we decided it was very hard to reflect it accurately, the other warming effects per passenger per flight. So that was the reason. So overall, there are a lot of studies showing the overall impact, but it is still very hard to cascade it to the per passenger per flight. So what we are doing, in order to incorporate the other warming effects. So last year we put together an advisory committee. And the travel impact model is now overseen by this advisory committee. And we have a operating plan, and non-CO2 effects are a work stream in that advisory committee. So we are looking at the latest science, and there are task groups, and this advisory committee is really composed of leading experts in the aviation industry, from airlines to NGOs to academia, really leading experts. So the idea is like there are task groups and workforces that are working on this operating plan, including non-CO2 effects. And then, they're working on that and coming up with a proposal to the advisory committee. And then advisory committee votes and decides how to include those factors to the travel impact models. So, we are following the advisory committee's guidance, and they're working towards that. However, recently, I don't know if you have seen it. It was, last week, we just included, other non-CO2 factors. So we moved from CO2 to CO2e because we also included, to tank the life cycle emissions to Google Flights. So we will be adding towards the other warming effects. And for the time being, when you go to Google Flights, you will see the numbers as CO2e. Including life cycle emissions. But also, if you want to know more, you go to the help center. And in the help center, we are providing information that there are other warming effects caused by flying, and we are working towards including them too.
So this is great to hear that you're working on inclusion of everything. And I think transparency is fantastic. It inspires confidence amongst travelers and other stakeholders, because from what I understand, you have stakeholders in this independent council, from American Airlines to Travelist to ICCT, who's working together, nonprofits as well as airlines. How do you work with, let's say, an airline to say, hey, is your job here to say, hey, American Airlines, will you please include CO2 emissions in your search results as well? Because I'm not sure. I don't think American Airlines does currently. Or is your goal here to say, all airlines of the world, here's how you do it. You can license our data. What is the end goal here?
So as I mentioned, it all started with the idea of how can we provide information to our users on our own platform. So then we looked for a model that can calculate the carbon emissions that are transparent and non-commercial. We couldn't find one. So that's why we built the travel impact model. So travel impact model, the idea is really to be non-commercial, but also to be transparent. So as you know, that the model methodology is published on the GitHub. And then we said, okay, like we have the technology, we have the scalability, we have the platform, so we can just provide it to the industry as well. So the model is available to everyone in a transparent and non-commercial way to the industry. So they can either use via an API or we can provide as a bulk data upload. So yeah, it's available to anyone in the industry. And as you may already know, that some of the industry players are already adapted the model under the Travelers Coalition especially, but also others. So Booking.com, Skyscanner, Trip.com, Expedia, Sabre, Travelport, they're all using travel impact model. So why is this important? So you ask about the end goal. So end goal is really to reduce the overall carbon emissions in the world. And then if you look at it, our part, we would like to change the user behavior so that we would like to provide all the information to them so that they can change their behavior. But in order to do that, consistency is the most important thing. Because think about yourself. You look for a flight in Google Flights, you see a different value for carbon emissions, and then you go to other platforms to book your flight and you see a different one. So you are confused. So providing different information, like, doesn't allow you to make a decision. I think it's the opposite. It just confuses you and then you just disregard that information. So that's why consistency is important. And because we have the technology and we are happy to provide the tool to everyone. So the end goal is to change the user behavior altogether and to provide the consistency and also in a transparent manner.
This is fantastic because I love that it's open to all airlines. I love the focus on transparency as well as accuracy. It's not one or the other. What is the change in consumer behavior that you've noticed? Have you seen more people, the look to book ratio is something that airlines often tend to look at. Are you seeing more people sorting by CO2 footprint? Are you seeing them then book that ticket? What percentage, for example? Do you have numbers that you can share?
Yeah. So while we are seeing some encouraging signs, we are not yet prepared to make broad and sweeping claims, but we started seeing some shifts in user behavior as well as an increase in the awareness. So there's been a marked increase in searches for terms like green flights or flights with low emissions directly on Google. And this shows that travelers are actively seeking out this information and incorporating environmental considerations into their choices. So we know from many studies that many users feel equipped to make choices that align with their values when they have the information. So we are focusing on that for the time being. And we know that small choices create big impact. So even if not everyone yet chooses the greenest flights every time, the collective impact of many travelers considering that makes a substantial difference. And also we continue to analyze how users are interacting with these features. And so this helps us understand what drives decision making and how can we further refine our tools to encourage that. But also another important thing as we talk about is the travel impact model has stimulated a broader industry conversation about consistent carbon emissions measurement and displaying that information to the users. I found it also very encouraging. So I think, as we mentioned, the education part. So I also see it a bit like 10 years ago when we were going to the hotels, we weren't thinking about, shall we change the towels or not? This wasn't even a question. We were changing the towels every day. And then they put, all these signs there, don't change the towels every day. So it's not good for the planet. And then they educated us. So now the behavior changed. I also see it that way a bit, we need to educate the users. Of course, it's important to note that behavioral change on a large scale takes time. And I think providing the accurate information is the first step to that. And we know that as we continue to enhance the features and build awareness by the help of collaboration in the industry, we will witness a significant shift towards more environmental conscious travel choices.
This is fantastic. And I'm glad to see some of the change in user behavior. Let's push this a little further. I'm aware, as I'm sure you are, of the Lufthansa green fares that were launched just over a year ago. And in the first year, I believe Lufthansa's conversion rate was about 3% or less than 3%, 1 to 3%. I think highest was 3% in Brussels Airlines. But within a year, I last heard that Lufthansa's conversion rate is now 9% for domestic Germany flyers. That's a 3x growth if you think about it in just 1 year. Is Google looking to work with airlines like that, like Google, like Lufthansa, to actually launch green fare-like products? Are there such deep integrations on the card, or do you feel that you will do something at Google Flights, make the model available, and any airline that wants to do it, can figure out what they want to do with it?
In fact, we are looking at all the opportunities that can help the users. We have run experiments on green products, like other than travel impact model. So it just needs to fit into the user journey of our platform. For example, on our platform, we are not providing booking. I mean, we are providing the options, but the booking doesn't end on our platform. So when it comes to we can only show the product to increase the awareness, but because we just, lead the consumers to directly to the airline's website or the OTAs. So the booking doesn't take place on our platform, but we are open to any experiment, any collaboration. Of course, we are working very closely with Lufthansa. They have been a great partner, of course, with American Airlines for years and years, but also the other airlines as well. Yes, we are looking at collaborations, how to enable the industry.
I'm glad to hear that you're open for all of the collaboration. So this definitely brings transparency and takes it further. I want to dig a little into the accuracy bit as well. You mentioned, your focus on accuracy for the travel impact model. Where do you source this data? Because my understanding is that this is predictive data, this is past data, not necessarily predictive data, and you're basing it on the past. How do you stay updated on the changes in airline fleets, airline routes, technologies, so that the travel impact model actually remains relevant?
Yes, great question. So I just wanted to state travel impact model is a model where we estimate emissions, but we use a lot of actual data while estimating those emissions. So we don't rely on a single data source. Instead, we combine information from our partners, and also we license external data, and also we use public data sets from government agencies. So we use the European Environmental Agency as the basis of the model, EEA model, and we also license other data sets like Piano. And then we have up-to-date flight schedules, seat layouts, and aircraft types, either directly from the airlines or through our partners. And these are important factors in the model, giving us granular insights for more precise calculations. Because, for example, seat layouts makes a difference on the per flight, per passenger carbon emissions. And then another important factor is the load factors, where we use a combination of a public data set. So we use Department of Transport in the US. And also we have another licensed data set for the rest of the world. We don't use actual fuel burn data in the model. And we update our data daily. So the calculations are refreshed daily on our platform.
Sebnem, that's very interesting. What I'm curious about is, does your model differentiate between what's the taxi time emissions versus in-flight emissions versus single engine taxi or no engine taxi? Do you take all of this into account?
Yeah, we do take taxi time into account because it's already in the base model, EA model. So it's applied a constant number to all flights for the time being, but we are taking it into account.
Okay, so from what I understand, you have taxi time into account. You will refine it further for the single engine versus no engine taxi. Those things will be incorporated in the future. Okay, that's good to know. When we talk about collaborations, are there ongoing and potential collaborations with airlines to integrate sustainability data into their booking process that they can speak about?
So as I mentioned, the model is available to anyone. Of course, we are in conversations with airlines as well as all the other industry stakeholders. It's ready when they're ready, or they would like to show the numbers to their users. We of course we are in conversations with airlines, but also as well as all the other stakeholders. It's possible that they can adopt the travel impact model as well. It's available.
Okay, so your primary role is to make sure it's available and it's easily accessible, and then you'll keep working on improving it.
Yeah, exactly. So it should be available. It should be easily accessible. I mean, from the partner perspective or from the industry perspective, it should be transparent. And also the advisory committee added a lot of credibility, but also a lot of objectivity to the travel impact model. Because as you can imagine that you can think about, okay, Google built a model and then Google have all the say on the model to make any changes. So we acknowledge that and we said, no, okay, we are putting together an advisory committee where they will be responsible or working on the changes on the model. And also the people in the advisory committee are really very credible people in the industry. So we are relying on their expertise as well it's very important, and everything is transparent. So we are also, ICCT is leading the advisory committee as the secretariat. They're doing an amazing job. And also after each advisory committee, if there's a decision taken before the implementation, they also publish it. So it's also very transparent, also for the partners that already adopted the model, and being non-commercial is also important, because this is not something that, we need to have it.
I hear you. I'm so glad we're speaking, because I've previously had Dan Rutherford from the ICCT as a guest on the podcast, and he speaks highly of the travel impact model. So I'm glad we're able to get down to the nitty-gritty of how exactly it's working. Now, let's talk about another collaboration, which is between Google and ICAO, where you are working on improving methodologies for carbon emission calculation. Can you please talk to us about the approach your team is taking with ICAO and how this partnership enhances accuracy and reliability?
Yeah. So the collaboration between Google and ICAO, I think makes a crucial milestone in aligning the methodologies and also enhancing the accuracy of flight emissions calculations. ICAO has the calculator for a long time, and Google brings its strengths in data science, technology, and also user experience. And ICAO offers, I think, its deep knowledge of aviation standards or long-standing work on emissions methodologies. So this combined expertise is invaluable. And we hold regular knowledge sharing sessions and exchanging insights on data sources, calculation techniques, and emerging scientific findings. And we are working towards the alignment of the methodologies. And we believe this will ensure greater consistency across the industry.
I'm glad to hear that. Because especially with CORSIA coming into effect this year, it's going to be doubly important. Given the diverse nature of independently produced carbon calculators, there are so many carbon calculators. Integration and consistency is crucial, but every week, there's not a single week that goes by that we don't hear of yet another carbon calculator, which is the most accurate. How do you ensure global alignment? This is like having, when you're traveling, you have these power outlet plugs. I remember coming to Switzerland, and the plug is very different from even the EU one. It has 3, and then it has a weird third one which goes out. And then you come to the UK, it still has 3. And then you go to the US, and there's not even a switch for the electricity. It's just always on. We must drive standardization. How are you working in that?
Yeah, I spend a lot of my time on global alignment and collaboration with the industry. I don't know if there is anybody that I didn't have a conversation, that they're working on carbon emissions measurement and we didn't meet. So we really work very closely with all the industry players, so to say, really like associations, NGOs, policymakers. And we are trying to align everything that is possible. And for us, travel impact model is like, continuously improving model. So we are happy to make changes in the model as well. So when I say alignment, it's alignment really like in every aspect. So I think sticking on the principles, is like transparency, non-commerciality, and like continuous improvement to be on track for the recent scientific studies is key. Also, like advisory committee is also very important in this manner. So we are really trying to collaborate with all the stakeholders. Our strength lies on our technology, our tools, our users, and our platform. So whatever is needed from the industry to make that collaboration, we are committed to provide our tools and technology. So I think it's best to really focus on the recent science and think these models or one model or the alignment as like we are providing this as a one single truth, as a public good to the industry, but also to the users. But I spend a lot of time on the alignment and the collaboration.
I know it is not easy, and I know it is a work in progress. I think I've had at least 3 different guests.
I think we are on the right track for that.
It is a conversation I often have on this podcast, as well as at conferences I speak at, where yet another model has been discovered. It is the most accurate because it's based on some magical real-time data.
Exactly. I think we need to look at it like from the way that, like your previous question, what do we want to achieve with those models? Like we want to decarbonize the industry, right? We want to change the user behavior. We want to decrease this. Like how can we do that without having a consistent approach? So, and then how can we do that if we are not transparent? And then how can we do that if we are not basing our models on the scientific researches? So I think we need to stick to those principles.
Right, exactly. And the thing is, every time the challenge is a lot of these technology firms that serve aviation use their carbon calculator as a competitive advantage. And the moment you start doing that to build a moat for yourself, then the greater good of the industry to reduce carbon emissions goes out of the window. It's about my competitive edge. And I think I appreciate the perspective where Google is coming from here. You're an independent third party. It's not that this is a moat, you've made it available to everyone. So I appreciate that. In your role, what future improvements or features do you envision for Google's travel impact model? Will that further enhance its effectiveness or user experience or something else?
Yeah. So I'm incredibly excited about the potential for the travel impact model, both to continue evolving under our advisory committee and become an even more powerful tool for sustainable travel decisions. So I think there are 2 parts of it. So one of them is like how to keep the model to the highest scientific standards. And the other is the communication of those numbers to the users to enable behavioral change. So I think the first part is taken care by our independent advisory committee and by ICCT. And we have a very solid operating plan and they're working towards that. And on the user experience side, so we think it's very important to go beyond the raw data points. So it's a very good beginning to start with providing the data to the users. But then, most of the time, the users don't know what to do with that data. So, for example, we started showing per flight, per emission. And then when you go and plan your trip, you see, 100 kilograms of CO2. So what does it mean? Is it good or is it bad? So then we started, okay, how can we indicate this is better than that? So we started putting green badges for the lower emitting flights on the same route. So we introduce visualization, so to say, so that the users can grasp the information more intuitively. And then we also included some contextualization, so to say. I don't know if you have seen it, but we started showing for the lower emitting flights, for example, 100 kilogram of CO2 means XXX number of trees absorbing CO2. So also trying to make it meaningful for the users, so that they can understand what does it mean. So we would like to keep users feel empowered, motivated, and rewarded for making sustainable travel choices, and it will only happen by continuously refining our tools and broadening our perspective. So I think with our users and platform and technology, we play a significant role in shaping a more sustainable future for travel. And this is an area where we keep exploring and experimenting and also enabling to the industry.
So let's be specific. One of my favorite additions recently of a feature was, I think I shared this with you on LinkedIn as well, when I could see how many trees emit that amount or absorb amount of carbon that I will save by flying another flight. I think it was New York to London, and I could have flown on the A350 versus an old 777. And Google showed me this is the amount of carbon X number of trees would suck in a day or in 10 days. I found that so relatable because ultimately I don't know what is 200 tons of CO2 or 200 kilograms of CO2. And I don't know what's the difference and how much does a person consume or need or a tree absorbs, right? So I really appreciated that. I wonder if you've seen any results of that and if there are more like that in the offering.
Yeah, it's just very recent, but it came out of the user studies. So when we were showing users different, we have user studies before deciding on a feature. And then we are asking users, does that make sense? What does it mean to have 100 kilograms? And then how do you relate to that? So it all came from that study that we need to add some meaning to the numbers. So it's a very recent launch. I hope it will help the users. And yes, we keep doing those user studies and the experiments. Yet more will come out of those.
I'm really looking forward to those. I think that's something that makes it more usable. Looking ahead, what trends do you foresee in the future of sustainable travel, and how does Google plan to stay ahead in embracing or staying on top of these trends to ensure that carbon emissions go down, especially from aviation?
Yeah. So we see more and more searches about sustainable travel. And especially, there are a lot of surveys after COVID, right? People realize that when they were in traveling, what happened to the environment in a positive manner. But we know that people keep traveling, and which is very good. And especially, so they would like to continue traveling, but traveling in a more sustainable way. Especially, from all the studies that we have seen, Gen Z, would like to travel, but really they are conscious about their environmental impact when they're traveling. So we see that travelers will demand increased transparency from travel providers regarding their sustainability practices and the impacts. And we normally approach this in two ways. So either we see the demand, answer the user's request with our products and features, or we see an opportunity how to use our platform to educate users, and we will keep on working both sides. And also we understand that the appetite for the travel sustainability changes from user to user. So we will also try to accommodate different sustainable travel needs for our users. And we, as Google, we like to innovate and iterate according to the user's needs. So we will keep doing that too. And on the other hand, as I said, fostering collaboration and the partnerships is also key within the industry. And we will keep working on that too.
I'm very glad to hear that. I think the biggest impact Google has is just because so many people use Google Flights or Google services when using an individual airline's website. Any feature that is available on Google dictates habits and shapes habits. And then someone will say, hey, why isn't my airline showing that in the airline app? And I'm deeply encouraged to see someone like United Airlines show in-app emissions now. And hopefully others will follow suit as well. And I think that's the biggest contribution for Google, coming as an outsider and yet someone who's a shaper of habits. And I think kudos to your entire team for doing little tweaks like the tree comparison from a UI perspective to ensuring on the accuracy of the data and just to the overall vision that this model should be freely available on GitHub and accessible to all airlines that might want to use it. So
Yeah.
really good work.
Yeah, glad to hear that. And I really would like to thank the entire team because, I mean, we have an amazing team working on this. Our amazing product managers. We have a lot of engineers who are passionate about the subject. So we have amazing UX people working on this, like always thinking about ahead. How can we provide more features so to make it meaningful to the users? So we have program managers working on the whole program and keeping up discipline. So we have partnerships people driving all this change. So it takes a village. But we have an amazing team working on that.
I'm delighted to hear, Shabnam. This has been a fantastic conversation. I truly enjoyed speaking with you. The last part of this interview is the fun part. It's called the rapid fire, in which I get to ask you some simple questions, and hopefully the listeners of this podcast and their entire team will get to know you a bit better. So we start with something simple. Like, what's your favorite book?
100 Years of Solitude, Gabriel Garcia Marquez.
Wow. Okay. Is there more context to that? Do you meditate? Have you done silent meditations? Are you an introvert?
I just love the book. I read it 3 times, I think, 2 or 3 times.
Wow.
It's like every time you read, it gives you something else. No, it's a great.
That's fantastic. I'm glad to hear that. What is your favorite airline?
I love all the airlines. I have to be impartial here.
Okay. You are one of those. I usually get this from airline heads of sustainability or airline CEOs. Let's make it easier. What's your favorite airport?
Zurich Airport is really very convenient. Really, I really like it. Yeah.
Okay, Zurich. That's a new one. I was hoping you might say the new Istanbul airport, but there's a long way to walk in that one. What's your favorite city?
Istanbul. I'm a bit biased on that.
Istanbul. Were you born and brought up in Istanbul?
Beautiful city. Yeah.
Okay. Believe it or not, it is mine and my wife's favorite city as well. I think we've been there about 12 times. So we absolutely love Istanbul. And this is from visiting, we've never lived there, but we love visiting. What's your favorite movie?
I think I was very affected by The Pianist by Roman Polanski. I really liked the movie.
That's definitely a deep movie, worth pondering upon. Shabnam, what is something that you want to learn?
I always like learning languages. So I would like to learn more languages or be better at the ones.
Which languages do you speak? Which languages do you speak right now?
I mean, I speak, of course, Turkish, my mother tongue, and then English, and then I'm pretty good at German now. I progressed well. I speak a bit of French as well, but that's it. And I would like to, learn more.
Pretty wide variety, I would say.
Yeah, and also I would like to say AI because it's inevitable that we need to learn more and more.
Wow. Next up, what do you do in your free time?
I spend a lot of time with my friends and family, my husband and my 2 daughters. We travel a lot. Also, I play piano, and I read when I have time.
So The Pianist is your favorite movie, and you play the piano. So that's fantastic.
and both of my daughters play piano as well. So
okay, it runs in the family then. Yeah. What is the best advice you've received, Shabnam?
I think it's from my father that your network is your net worth. So my father told me to build genuine and trusted relationships and support others and really be generous with my time and energy for the people around me. I follow that advice and I think for me it's very valuable.
Okay, and final question. If we are speaking 1 year from today and we are popping champagne, what are we celebrating?
So I think we are celebrating that everyone uses, we are celebrating that users are making more and more sustainable travel choices. And we, as the leading industry players, helped and played a crucial role in that altogether. So I think, we should be celebrating that.
I'm glad. And given that you're Google, I'm sure you're tracking some metrics on that as well. Uh, from now till 1 year later. Sebnem, it was a pleasure speaking with you. Congratulations on all the fantastic industry leading work that you're doing at Google to make travel sustainable. I wish you all the best.
Thank you very much. It was a pleasure to be here too.
Thank you for listening to this episode of Sustainability in the Air. Aviation is one of the hardest to decarbonize industries, yet there are multiple paths to get to net zero. Awareness is key to a green future. So please give us your support to help our sustainable aviation insights reach a wider audience. You can do this by sharing this episode on your network, on LinkedIn, Twitter, or even WhatsApp. Or perhaps you might consider leaving a review on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you listen to this episode. You can start a conversation with us by writing to us at podcast@simpliflying, that's simply with an i.com. And for more content on sustainable aviation, please visit our website green.simplifying.com and join the movement. Sustainability in the Air is an original podcast by Simplifying. The show is produced by Juraj Torf in Slovakia. Dirk Singer is our Director of Sustainability, who leads research for each interviewee out of Greenwich, UK. Shubhadeep Pal is our supervising editor based out of Mumbai and Singapore. The articles are written by Ayushi Badola in Dehradun in India and Mira Hull in Montreal, Quebec. Creative design is led by Lihia Esteve in Montreal. Baiba Drimain is the project director for the show based out of Valencia, Spain. Special thanks to Wendy Sim in Singapore. And I'm Shashank Nigam, the CEO of Simplifying and your host. Please feel free to connect with me on LinkedIn.